story of how this quote came to be. So the quote was, "Be strong enough to be gentle." And again, this is from the Transformers voice actor. His brother in the Vietnam War came back, and they were just chit chatting, and he was telling him like, "I'm gonna go out for an audition." The older brother said, "Where are you going?" This gonna be a superhero. I'm gonna be a hero uh truck. And the brother who was in the Vietnam War, he said, "Don't be a movie star hero, be a real hero." And then that's how the quote started, was be strong enough to be gentle. And what does that quote mean? Um, it's in a leadership standpoint, Ken, you can really bring up Optimus Prime. The Transformers, this is who's voicing Optimus Prime, is just the leader, the one who's always calm in no matter what situation, the optimistic, but yet, well, let's get down to the dirty work and knowing the realism of things. And when you hear him talk, it's like, oh wow, like this guy, like the guy has everything under control regardless of all chaos. So how does that mean when you express it? This is through words and action, through tone of voice. And again, how is it going to be more actionable, and how can you be strong enough to be gentle? What are your thoughts before I dive into mine?
I think it's finding that balance between being, I mean, I don't want to use the same word that's in the quote, being strong, but like
Yeah.
you need to be very steadfast in what you believe, but at the same time, still have humility with the individuals that you're going along that journey with. And the first thing that kind of came to my mind was I remember in elementary school, there was this one principal, Jack McKay, and everyone loved him because he was, I mean, I didn't know like what made a good principal at the time, but he was the type of person that like knew every kid's name. He would be out there playing like ball with us at the same time he's like doing principal like things, right? So it's that ability to be relatable from like all levels of the organization that also just like builds that respect for that individual as a leader.
Yeah, like that. It's more actionable of being relatable. That's just that's the action point. For me, it was more of the tone of voice. It's just you're
Mm-hmm.
an optimist and everything else. It's like the little debate of being a manager versus a leader. And I feel like when people need to get stuff done, it's easy to yell. It's easy to express anger or like what's frustration, and be strong enough to keep those emotions at check to make sure you can be that approachable person. That's how I viewed it a lot. Thinking about even for relationships, like those bad days, are you gonna just ream, like just express out and just be vocally loud and cause more problems than good, Or can we just dissect an information and it's like, okay, this is what it is, and I'm strong enough to analyze how I want to express it so I can just be calm about it. That's how I took the quote. Is more of that.
It's more tonality than it is actions.
Yeah.
I imagine that right now you're having like Optimus Prime's voice ringing through your head.
Oh, it's great. I love it, dude.
And as soon as you brought this up, I was trying to recall what he sounds like, but his voice isn't what I think of when I'm going to sleep. So I'm having a hard time
Only
thinking of
this
the
week though,
tonality
for
behind it,
me.
but I do understand what you mean. Is just like you can't scream and yell in
Hmm.
general. Yeah, I
When
think that's interesting that your focus is more on tonality. For me, it's almost like no matter how much of a hierarchy there might be within a group, like I always hate that like that one line. I mean, there's a time and place for it too, but there's always that
Mhm.
like time where someone could be like, "Don't deal with it yourself. Like, go talk to their manager because like that's what their job is." And you're like, why is there a gap in communication between like why does the man like I is the manager they're supposed to be there for that, or like should there is that a bigger indication that there might be something wrong with setting expectations or the communication between individuals or things like that where like that's what truly makes you a good leader is that you can talk to anyone on the team and they understand the perspective
Mhm. It's
versus
so
being
approachable.
told what to do. Here's your marching order and go forward.
And when you have something to like to talk about, you just can't because you're just paralyzed because of just that fear.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm a huge advocate of like very flat organizations. Because I think that, especially, if we were living back in our in-person world, you should be able to sit down at anyone on any table and just have a conversation with them, regardless if they're like a janitor or a software engineer or an athletic trainer or, just some lonely business operations dude. Like that's me, by the way. Um, I think there should
Really?
be some level of where you can just like sit and have that conversation. Like I
Mhm.
remember being at one of my past employers, and yeah, we would all sit and have lunch together. But a big piece to also keep in mind is what your physical, like your physical body language is saying,
Mhm.
and how like kind of turning your shoulder one way or another can actually block someone else out, which is equal to like, yeah,
Yeah.
you sit with everybody, but you don't really sit with everybody. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so I think that that's also something to also keep in mind. It's not just the ability to physically be in the space of everybody, but
Is how you welcome it with action, like body language of the twists and turns. Instead of like going off someone in the back, and you kind of again put that wall up versus like turning them and opening them up and allowing that individual to be involved.
absolutely. And you talked about it too. Like sometimes people are a little bit afraid just because of someone's title, right? So the
Hmm.
person that's in that other role that might be higher up, air quote, right? Air quote higher up or something like that. It's a little bit more onus on them to be the one that takes the first step of opening up the conversation too.
Yeah, you need that. You just need that gentle touch,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and that could just mean everything else. So yeah, food for thought for people who wanna just dive in that quote. I think it's very simple but thought provoking at the same exact time.
I love it. It's such a gentle way to end this podcast.
Nick, you wanna close it off because you're so good at it?
Oh my goodness. I don't even remember what I said last week, but if you made it to this part of the episode, we appreciate you. Please like, comment, subscribe on whatever platform you are listening to us on, and we will see you in the next episode.
Peace.